television, I think, allows for a new kind of epic storytelling that we haven't had access to in a long time. Movies have this idea that the narrative is condensed. It's the hero's journey. It's the upward arc, and then the resolution. And I think that TV shows have, in a certain way, are resurrecting this idea of episodic storytelling over time.
Yeah. I have an interview upcoming on my YouTube channel with Sophie Strand, this amazing author who's thinking about how to amplify and multiply our current way of storytelling. Because myths are like the nervous system of how reality is held together, and they can take many forms. America is a great nation. Western civilization advances because it holds in its bosom the universal truth of progress. But it can also be myths that followers of this channel would be more likely to sympathize with. Indigenous peoples have culture of land connectedness, for instance. These are not only statements about the world, but as they direct how we create relation and justify specific ways of thinking and acting, as such they're also myths related to stories, about deep patterns of relations, like the story about how Frey won the giantess Gerda as his wife, or the story about how Jesus, by his death, redeems humanity of sin, or the story about how Zeus turned himself into a swan and then had sex with a woman named Leda, which is kind of weird, but also kind of cool. Now, one myth in our part of the world that has been amazingly successful was given shape by this man, Joseph Campbell. With inspiration from Jung and from the Russian structuralists working on fairy tales, he formulated perhaps the most important myth of the 20th century, the hero's journey. A story about how some dude leaves his home, goes through some trials and achieves something and then returns. In fact, I've considered if I should name this the myth of the dude. Campbell's idea here could have remained some marginal scholarly fabulations had it not been picked up by Hollywood. In a sense, the genesis of the hero's journey myth is in itself a kind of hero's journey story. It makes full circle. It begins at home in the popular culture with the Russian babushkas who are telling their weird and quirky stories about the Baba Yaga forest witch who's flying around on a molten pestle and lives in a hut that stands on chicken legs in the forest. It's totally on mushrooms, right? And this trippy animist shit was then observed by scholars of the early 20th century who were trying to make sense of it all. So it left its home, it went socially upwards. It traveled the forests of mind labyrinths of these armchair researchers with names such as Roman Jakobson and Julien Grémard and Vladimir Propp. From here the story found its guide in Joseph Campbell, who went into the cave of a talk show program, and then people started to listen. And the story went along its path. It met this guy here, Christopher Vogler, who formulated it into what has been called the Mac myth of our age. Hereby, the story got its elixir, as Vogler wrote a kind of hero's journey for dummies, directed at Hollywood instructors, and that has become the Bible of Hollywood storymaking. Voila! The stories have come home again to popular culture, but now transformed in a truly Campbellian way into the ultimate dude story, the Mac myth of our day. Now clear of all the weird female initiatory motifs of the Baba Yaga and the subtle incoherent tricksters of traditional narration, but now stepping onto the world stage as fully formed hero's journey, the polished, mind-numbingly self-repeating, run-of-the-mill entertainment of the movie industry, where some dude doesn't want to leave his family and do all the duty action that we all know is really his calling and what's cool about him. But then something pressures him to take up the task anyway, and then he goes and goes through all this duty stuff, and he meets teachers and enemies and allies, and he kills some end-of-level monster and ends up with some idiotic pocket philosophical, pseudo-psychological, neoliberalist bullshit insight, which in Hollywood typically will take the form of, if you just believe in yourself, you can fulfill your destiny, or similar stupid shit. Of the kind that people tend to put on memes and in front of pretty landscapes and so on.
Do or do not. There is no try.
What?
That's Yoda. From Star Wars.
Oh.
However, today this amazing thing is happening. I almost feel that there's a bit of a mythic resistance front growing of these amazing voices. People who are starting to question this myth of the hero's journey. Does it really deserve this status as the essential monomyth that Campbell wanted it to be? They're pointing out that this is actually a really duty dude story, that dudes are telling dudes about dudes in order to dudify our way of relating.
Yeah, well, you know, that's just like your opinion, man.
And perhaps we should tell our stories, or retell our old stories, or weave our new stories in ways that lean a little bit more towards the old Russian babushkas and their tricksters and the Baba Yaga. Ways that are varied and unstructured and colorful and multifaceted. And among these people, I'll just mention Sharon Blackie and Sophie Strand, and there are probably many others. But soon you will get an interview with Sophie Strand on my YouTube channel, an amazing author and thinker that I have the honor of hosting, and I really encourage you to check it out. Her way of thinking about this has much more clarity than mine, and dare I say, it's also a little bit less duty, and see you around.